ADF exclamation point. Knowing how creative Nintendo can be when utilizing hardware when it releases, and assuming that Switch 2 is ray tracing capable, can we expect revolutionary use of RT? A dungeon in a new Zelda game built fully around light and shadows. Metroid 5 in fully dark areas lit up only by Samus's suit. Assuming that the Switch 2 has the same form factor as Switch, what creative use tech would you like to see from Nintendo? Thanks! Exclamation point. This is an interesting question, Alex, because fundamentally they have got all of the features required for next generation gaming. It's just really the performance that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think also Nintendo's art style lends itself well, like the usual art style you find in a lot of their platform games, for example, lends itself to a variety of types of ray tracing. And it would be interesting because of all the people who make games currently, I would say Nintendo would be the one to do something really interesting with it. Just kind of like how the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom games they use systemic physics in a way that AAA games don't tend to do. And I would say they would do the same thing here. I can't even begin to dream of what they would dream of. But I do think like a game like Luigi's Mansion, you could see them doing it, right? That game, they already had the mirror in Mario 64, right? Like what they can surely do some fun stuff like that with mirrors, and you could only do that also without ray tracing, technically, if it's just a mirror on a flat surface. But they would actually do it probably with a gameplay purpose in mind. I don't know, John, do you think of anything?
I mean, it's just as you say. I mean, there is a good chance that they could do that because they have done this in the past. Like sometimes it's successful, sometimes not, but it takes me back to from things like when they did the Game Boy Color version of Zelda Link's Awakening, they made a dungeon based on color, right? They've always done games that utilize specific hardware features of their controllers. It's very Nintendo to utilize hardware in interesting ways to do fun things, because they're only fundamentally targeting that singular platform, so they can kind of do whatever they want with it. So I could see them doing something fun with ray tracing in one of their games. If their engineers get a hold of this, like, hey, we can do this thing, and suddenly it's like, well, how about we do this like sort of puzzle or a concept idea here using those features. So I'd like to see it. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, the Switch 2 is just so forward looking in so many ways. It's just a question of how much you could get out of like a device that likely has to run the SoC at like 5 watts mobile.
It's always the question, man. I'm really interested to see what that ends up looking like in terms of like power and just what they actually push on the mobile form factor here.
I mean, what I will say, though, is that, integrating stuff like machine learning and ray tracing onto the silicon is not cheap, right? It all takes up die area, and area is like, at a premium, especially now. So for Nintendo to embrace that, there has to be a reason. DLSS is an obvious one, right? Ray tracing, it's down to them to see what they can do with the hardware, but it's there for a reason. And, it's not as if NVIDIA can't produce cut down versions of hardware with the RT cores removed, because we saw it with the 16 series on GTX. So they can do it.